Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Bilsbach, and I'm the Center Director for the Central Mountain Small Business Development Center. And I'm so honored and excited to have Holly Woods. I always say, yes, that's really her name. PhD, though, joining us today. And she is truly incredible being. She's a purpose activator, an entrepreneur, scientist, author, speaker, innovation product and systems consultant. And I don't know about you, but I need all of that more in my workspace as well as my personal space. So Holly, thank you so much for joining us. And if you could connect with the next slide, and Holly will share her story in a moment so you get to know her a bit more. The Central Mountain SBDC is part of a whole statewide network. We have 15 centers in our state. And just coincidentally, our center is the yellow one in the middle, but you can connect with any of us via our websites. And we also work often concurrently with Northwest SBDC and West Central. And Brian with Southwest is really starting to offer some of these offerings as well. Next slide.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to say, Jamie, before I hop in?
No, I'm just welcome and I'm very excited.
So I am honored to be here. My favorite thing in the whole world is working with entrepreneurs, people who've chosen the sort of the more challenging approach to living life, right? That you're bringing your own innovation, your service, your offering to the world in order to express yourself fully and probably among all of you to make a difference in the world. And I'm so inspired by the many variations of, the nuanced expressions of those innovations in the world. And so I am literally devoting the rest of my life in order to help people become more fully expressed, more embodied, more successful in every way, not just financially, in living as yourself. And so when Jamie asked me to come up with some topics for some workshops, we talked last fall initially, and I thought, I love doing the pivot on purpose conversation. We've been talking about that, right, for 2 years since the pandemic started. So I was thinking, we're all getting ready to go back to work, and the world's not, they were going to go back to what was that normal, but, sort of a little more systematic approach to life. And this is a good conversation. And then the world happened. And rather than business being normalized again in a new way, right? We had the Omicron and then now the war, and like it just right? It just keeps happening. And so what would have been the conversation had all that not transpired is now going to be this conversation. And really what I'm starting to lean into in my own work in the world is how do we navigate this new normal, this new uncertainty, the lack of any kind of awareness about what truly is going to happen for us as humanity on this planet. We really don't have a roadmap. There are no blueprints for doing this like we've always done it. So I wanted to ask, what is it in your mind are, let's say, the 3 biggest challenges right now globally and locally that you're experiencing? What seems to hinder your ability to move into the world in your business? What's going on for you? And maybe Jamie, I don't know if you can see hands or chat. I can see people. Does anybody want to popcorn? What are the kinds of things that you're struggling with in your business related to the sort of the global conditions, local and global conditions? Nobody has challenges?
I'll mention something. My name is Nicole, and I'm the manager of people and culture for Ross and Able Reels in Montrose. And one of my biggest challenges has been, of course, hiring, recruiting, finding individuals who want to work, finding, getting them to stay at work. And then on top of that, really dealing with a lot of challenges with keeping up with the day-to-day compliance. It feels like it's a never ending job to
Wow.
try to keep on top of that. And it's just been very challenging to juggle so many different things.
Uh-huh. What is your business, Nicole?
So I work for Ross Reels, which
Okay.
is a fly reel
Oh, got it.
manufacturer.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Mhm.
Great. Thank you. So, and so we'll talk about how pivoting on being more purpose-driven, focused, can also actually assist in the recruitment, branding of your business. And I'm sure you've explored that a bit. Anybody else?
Yeah, we had Chris and then Heather, and then, so Chris, you jump in, and then Celeste.
I'm Chris. I work for Catabatic Gear, which is a lightweight backpacking manufacturer in Salida.
Mhm.
And I am going to second part of what Nicole said. I think for us, just in the last couple of years, the cost of living here has gone up so much. Like finding folks who can work for us. Our base rate pay has gone up in the last 2 years, probably 33 to 40%, just to be able to recruit good folks and make sure that they're getting a good quality of life while they're working for us and while they're doing all that work for us as well. So I think that's one of the biggest things we're struggling with right now.
And when you say the biggest, it's the quality of life and or pay.
Yeah, like being able to find folks in our town who want to who can afford to live here and do the job.
Right.
And then making sure they get a good quality of life.
Yeah.
From the pay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, pricing here has gone crazy, I think, in all of Colorado.
Yeah.
And then we had Celeste.
Hi, thank you. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about, let me just lower my hand. I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day who's considerably older than me. He's like an uncle figure. As I was telling him that I was onboarding new team members into my business, and he said to me, where are you finding these people? You're going to have a hard time finding these people because there's nobody who wants to work. And what I said to him is, I am an online business owner, and the people that I hire are typically contractors or other business owners who perform services. And I have more people responding to my job postings than I can even handle, and I actually literally need somebody to like support me, like going through that. And the thing that what I began to realize as I was going through this process of looking for basically an executive assistant, is I began to realize this: it's not so much that there are not necessarily people out in the job force. I think that it's like when they talk about the great, exit or the great resignation, I think a lot of those people, and I say this because I work in the online space, I think that they came to the online space. I think they're trying to run businesses in the online space. And the challenge that I see is that they all arrived 4 months ago into these brand new businesses that they've constructed and created for themselves, which I love and I applaud. I mean, I literally applaud anybody crafting a life that they want to have. And at the same time, I feel like in the industry that I work in, like suddenly there's all these people who are brand spanking new business owners. I don't know that that's a problem, but I feel like it's a phenomenon to contend with.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's a ton of people out there that are possibly not terrifically skilled. They may know their skill set that they offer as services, but they're not terrifically skilled about running a business.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which is a whole entirely other skill set.
Yeah.
I'm just really curious to watch how that's going to unfold.
Yeah.
How that's going to change work culture, all the things about. Anyway, there's a lot I could probably say about it, but I just wanted to call that out and say that's just something that I am seeing over here kind of in the world that I work in.
And Celeste, what is your business again?
So my company is Northern Crown Media, and a lot of the work I do under my own name as a personal brand, which is Celeste Heron. Mm-hmm. And I am a brand strategist and a brand coach.
Great. I'm glad you're here. And absolutely, I too am experiencing a lot of people newly entering the online business space without a lot of skill or conceptual understanding about how to start businesses and or how to create businesses that reflect who you really are so that there is a chance of it being successful. You know, and it is related to the Great Resignation. We're no longer willing to give up our lives, the values we hold and the dreams we hold for a company that's only interested in profit. And so it's, you know, it's the whole thing is coming apart, thank goodness. Anyway, one more. I think Heather had
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that lands so much with me, Holly, what you were just saying, Celeste, what you're speaking about. My name's Heather. I'm the founder of a project called Life, and I do creativity coaching and professional coaching. And I really enjoy weaving those two things together because I think it, again, Holly, like what you're speaking about, people are tapping into their purpose, tapping into themselves, tapping into a deeper meaning with their business or with the way that they spend their time. And a lot of that is they're coming up with new businesses and leaving old businesses. I think the thing that I'm seeing with like majority of my clients is just like this pretty dense fatigue, like with just working from home or working on the computer, being on Zoom, not having social, like this, like we're a couple of years in and some people, you know, are out in the world kind of living more normal. But a lot of people are not. And there's just this like blanket of like loss of stamina that I'm seeing and experiencing. And with creativity, you know, I would link creativity to purpose, to meaning, to life force. And so it's fun to get to work with people through that lens. And it's like the river we have to cross to even get to the point where creativity is accessible is pretty far and wide, because creativity is like, again, like life force. And if your light is burning so dimly and you just can't, then it's, you know, working with people to get out of that space and move into a brighter space. And it's taking a lot of time, which is, you know, everyone's on their own journey, but yeah, just this like weight.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather. I absolutely agree with you. And I'm not going to walk through it today. I'm not going to spend any time on the element of my own work and business that is related to helping people clear out, you know, create space, clear out all the toxins and residue and karma and shadow, et cetera. It is a big part of my work, but it's so essential to living truly as our authentic selves, and to do that, to have access. So thank you for presencing that. Thank you, all of you. I really appreciate hearing what's true. I don't pretend to have the the download on the challenges, and you know, so we know that the world has turned into this place where it appears anyway that we are subject to volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous challenges, and these things are real. They are happening in the world. And it's creating a lot of, you know, angry, violent, impoverished, disillusioned people. And the world is burning, flooding, melting, and now at war. And so while those are truly the context of this world we live in, it doesn't mean that we actually have to operate from that place. And I imagine all of you are fully aware of the challenges. If that's the perspective, you know, what the fork are we doing now? Why are we having to contend with this craziness that appears to be the human condition? But I also know, and probably this wouldn't be some new paradigm shifting statement to any of you, is that the world, we really literally had to come apart at the seams. We had to deconstruct. My business is called Emergence Institute because I've studied the science of emergence. And in order to create something new, you actually literally have to rip apart the thing that was before. And so we've been deconstructing as humanity. Things are literally falling apart in order for them to come back into a higher order. And and we're we're flying the plane while we're building it. We don't have the opportunity to say, wait, can we hold on being humans for a short period of time while we figure out what the new thing's supposed to look like? Well, no, we can't, because we all live in these skin bags, these human bodies on a very real planet that has laws of nature, and it all kind of has to go on. But what that means is we're stepping off the curb. We frickin' don't know where we're going. And those of us who have the internal capacity to hold space, to create businesses, to live into that higher order, are being called to do so. And so that's why you're here today. And that's where we're going today. This wouldn't have been a conversation 6 months ago, but it's one we're having today. And I literally am excited. I'm literally in awe. I am actually in awe these days of what's available to us now that the world is deconstructing. Because it wasn't available to us 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 2019. None of this could have happened. Magic was not available, and it now is. So we're going to talk about some of these things. And my greatest belief is that we are the solution, right? We know that the most economic and potent social impact can happen when those of us kind of in the trenches in entrepreneurial roles stand up and say, you know what, I'm going to create something different. I'm going to be the person who brings my best, highest, most evolved self to my work, to my products, find my people, create that niche, create, strategy and branding messages that say, I know how to do this. I am it. And I'm showing up fully to be that which can change the world. And so that's my invitation, really. It's a challenge and an invitation. And, I'm challenging myself too, that the only way we are going to see the change that's really required is those of us who are creating, micro or macro businesses. I don't actually know how big most of your businesses are, but we're showing up, creating the new way. So we are the solution, because the big corporations, while they can talk a good game about purpose and they can talk about creating, human-oriented cultures, and they can talk about something other than profit, we all know that those shifts are going to take years, if not decades. And we don't have that. We literally don't have that time. Oops, there, I did it again. We have the time. They're not, catch me too, please. If I've said anything today that's, I've just promised not to say, they're not inspired. I think that's, for me, the distinction is they're not necessarily inspired to do something different because they have shareholders. And most of us don't have public companies. So we don't have shareholders that we're beholden to, and we can do whatever we want, and in alignment with what's really true for us. So I believe that we are the solution. So today we're going to talk about, not just how do you make a purposeful pivot, because that's a fun conversation and I love having it, but we're also going to throw in, so how does that create resilience? How does that affect you and your business so much that you are now able to create something that can withstand further implosions, because we know they're coming. Like, I'm not going to pretend that there isn't something else around the corner to just, even if Russia pulls out of Ukraine and the new variant doesn't turn into something that we have to mask up for, something else will be emerging. We know that's true because that's where we are now. So we expect more implosions, more deconstruction, and how do we create the train tracks, the runway to take us into the future, to allow us to have purpose alignment, addressing the changing landscape of our customers and the markets, and learn how to be in our businesses in a way that allows us to fail fast in order to succeed, in order to meet the needs of our changing markets. So this is sort of the conversation today, and I hope that is okay with y'all. That's where we're going. So the first off, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but it is so essential, is how do we show up? How do each of us as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a catalyst for humanity, as an innovator of new products and intentional systems in the world, how do we show up? And in the past, and most of us still do this, show up with a rational mind, because we've been taught in our culture, our educational systems, and everything around us, all our social systems are really geared to have us think in linear ways with certainty and determination. So what that looks like is we show up in our businesses efforting, and we're determined to meet our quarterly goals, and we're determined to meet a particular revenue target at the end of the year, and we're determined to create that new product that we envisioned last year. And so what happens is that, you know, that wears us out. We burn out, we get exhausted, we become distracted on occasion, where we miss out literally on alternate realities when we live fully from just our rational mind. And so I'm not suggesting you don't use that beautiful mind of yours, or that it doesn't work as I think of the heart as a transducer, and the mind as a circuitry board. Certainly we need these things, but there's so much more available to us to capture as opportunity and possibility than just what our mind can conceive of and project. And so the burnout, the fatigue, the flailing that happens when we effort and are so determined often leads to feeling unfocused and lost, because our whole being literally recognizes that our mind cannot capture it all, and we get lost and confused, and that leads us to be clumsy and chaotic in our businesses, and have a lack of clarity and get disoriented. Just a quick story. One of my clients, a woman in her early 60s, New York City, had a very successful career, started a few businesses, was a writer, a screenwriter. She worked in Hollywood, among other things. She was a communication coach. And she came to me like, I don't know what my next expression is. You know, each of us has these many expressions in life, and you have success, you get bored, you want to do the next thing. And she's like, I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out, you know, rational mind. We all want to figure out what the next thing is. And after, you know, doing a couple months of work, she started to loosen her attachment to figuring it out and thinking she knew, but she couldn't get there, and she was very lost. And we gained some clarity about what it was that was emerging from her. And it turned out she just needed to have the courage and the boldness to go to her current work environment. She was doing presentation building skills in corporations, and bring those ideas and that inspiration she had to her partners and say, hey, this is what I want to do next. What do you think? And it actually opened up and enlivened the whole business. And now they are serving these huge tech companies all around the world. And she is so inspired and happy because she let go of thinking it was some narrow thing that she had to focus on, and actually started receiving the gifts of the universe as she began to envision what's possible. So I'm proposing another way. One of the mentors I've studied with is Otto Scharmer of the Presencing Institute, and he's been doing this work for several decades. And there's this notion that he presents about absencing versus presencing. And absencing is when we see the world through the existing cultural lenses, which, as we know, is a constricted, smaller, more narrow version of reality than we probably know exists. And it creates a lot of fear and anger and doubt about what is possible for us. That's the top half of this diagram demonstrates what happens when you live from that place, which is what happens to many businesses when world events happen. Is we get fearful, we shut down, we stop sensing, we have closed hearts because we're afraid, we start blaming governments and blaming the economists and blaming the capitalists and, you know, blaming the person, you know, the people down the street who won't buy from you online because your brick and mortar business is closed. We just blame, and that literally shuts down any possibility that we could see anything outside of our current perspective taking. So presencing through Otto Scharmer's work is about sensing into the possibility through curiosity, compassion, and courage. And he teaches people how to do that globally with an open mind, open heart, and open will. And it's a great process. And I use some of this in my own work, but you all are familiar with what that feels like, because we also call that flow. The natural alignment of ourselves in our true lives, the true version of us that shows up, feels like a river flowing downstream, hurling over rocks and around bends and corners, and those beautiful eddies that happen in rivers because it went that way and there was this little pool of calm and quiet and stillness. And those eddies live in our lives. When we're in flow, we have this stillness that's not available when we're efforting and determined to meet, artificial targets. I'm not suggesting that business systems aren't important. We shouldn't have them, but sometimes we impose such heavy artificial constraints on ourselves and where our businesses should be. So what I'm encouraging is an awareness that an internal and then an external coherence happens when we are driven by the purpose of our soul, when we are really beginning to understand and align with and acknowledge and listen to and claim that which lives deep inside of us, and then can drive our every action or every instinct or every impulse, not only in how we show up in the world as these people in flow, but it actually is also distributed through our products. So when you are not in flow, you, the founder, the entrepreneur, the innovator, show up not in flow, it shows up in your products, whatever you're delivering to the world. So your product is just a representation, literally a tangible representation of who you are and how you show up. So if we are showing up as that efforting, determined person, our products are going to have that energy. And if we're showing up as a lost, confused person, our products are not going to find our market. But if we are showing up as a purpose-driven, I know who I am, I know what I do, I know what I'm designed, perfectly designed, one of a kind, nuanced version of me is perfectly designed to bring this product in the world to these people. And we're going to talk about customers and market needs. And when I do that, the world, I often say that, if you were in a tug of war with the universe, you'd win, because the universe wants you to succeed. It wants you to be the deepest, most alive, engaged expression of you in the world. And so that is what I mean when I talk purpose-driven. When I talk purpose-driven, I'm not talking about creating something that will do good in the world, and that is just awesome. Thank God we're finally even considering doing good things in the world. I think purpose is much deeper than that. And so those good things can be delivered in the world in a way that is most expressive of what's alive in you. And so it's kind of a deeper, it's like 2 levels down from the doing good thing. Just another quick story about a client of mine. Name was Bill. He'd had very successful management company, worked with some pretty good, pretty big tech companies, Cisco and others. And he was also had startup of a facilitation company. He really loved helping people collaborate in meetings and at work in order to be more efficient. But he knew there was something missing and he didn't know how to find his next endeavor. He was really wanting to bring something in the world that would make him happier and find more meaning. And so we got real clarity about his purpose. And the reason I'm telling this story is we came up with this metaphor for him that helped him think about how, when you know purpose, it's like being in a slipstream, the ocean currents that flow along and carry things from one part of the world to another in the slipstream of the ocean. And when if any of you remember the movie Finding Nemo, I think Dory floated around the world in the slipstream, right? Looking for Nemo. And so when we're in that slipstream of our purpose, things just happen magically. Literally, you're in synchrony with the natural laws of the universe. And so in that place, you can find more clarity, more definition, more efficient strategy for you and your business. Bill eventually did find his way. We taught him to stay in that slipstream long enough that an opportunity just plopped in his lap one day, literally just showed up. He's like, Holly, you're not going to believe what just happened. This guy called me, he's retiring. He's giving me his Vistage groups, and that's what I'm going to do. And it was magic. Like, you can't make this stuff up. It just happened. So when we have this purpose alignment that is a natural flow of the cosmos coming through us, it creates an internal coherence, which creates an external coherence with the world. So you can think about it as vertical integration and horizontal integration, but we become that which we are intending to deliver to the world through our products and business. And there is no distinction. I'm not saying you are your business, but what you are bringing to the world as yourself shows up in your products, and it just happens easier. So what I'm talking about here is a very different form of purpose, as I mentioned, than most people consider. And when I think about precise purpose, precise clarity of purpose, I'm talking about that which is the fundamental essence of who we are. And there are many facets of us, and it's multidimensional. But when you have a sense of your purpose, then that shows up in every part of your life, not just your business. So it shows up in your relationships. It shows up in how you show up in the world as, a parent, a friend, a partner, a colleague. It shows up in every interaction you have with the world. It creates an adaptability and a malleability and a responsiveness and an agility when you have that level of purpose orientation. I'm going to my purpose statement, just so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about, is I speak powerful truths to shine love onto shadow, to liberate soul's potential and reunite love and power. Now, an expression of that for me in the world is I work with entrepreneurs and I help them, and I speak very powerfully as a coach and mentor. Like, I don't beat around the bush. I go straight in. And my intent is to shine love onto shadow, the things you can't see, that which is unconscious to you, so you can get a sense of where you are aligned and where you aren't, and what strategies are working, what isn't, how your product might need to be, adjusted or re-engineered. And in order so that you can become liberated in your expression in the world through your product, your business, and that brings in an embodied version of power, which in essence really is just love, you showing up as love in the world when you're living that powerfully. I'm going to stop for a minute and just see if there are any questions or comments. I know this is a different way of thinking about purpose than many people naturally think about. I work from the soul, and because that to me that's what brought us here as humans in this lifetime, and our soul is really wanting to be expressed. So while I'm a scientist and an entrepreneur and sort of live in the material world very fully, I also am this deep, soulful, spiritual creature. Yeah, Heather, I think you had a question or comment?
Yeah. So thank you. First of all, this is wonderful. And I feel like you and I speak the same language. And so that's always refreshing when I'm like, oh, first language, thank goodness. This is great. And in my business, especially when I'm working through the professional lens, like, maybe I don't need to, but I feel like I need to translate so that people, because not everyone is on that level of thought yet, and I have had conversations where I'm like, ooh, that was too much. Like like even using the word download, I'm like, that's common everyday experience for me. I'm like, downloaded this information. They're like, what do you mean you download? And I'm like, oh, and so there's this like translation of purpose driven and the way that you're describing it to like layman's terms almost, or like a way that can resonate with people. And I just would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Heather. And certainly I could have said that, but so I am becoming bold in my delivery of my message, because I'm not going to use the word urgent, because I am inspired to live the most authentic version of me at this time. And it's not for everybody. You know, some of you may like be considering me too strange and woo-woo. And as my partner now says, he's the conductor of the woo-woo choo-choo. Like, you know, this is the life I'm living. And I can talk, you know, I also work with senior executives and billion-dollar tech companies, and I don't have to use this language either. I can show up as the version of me that is best suited for the environment. So if I have clients who are really living in the material world and they're not very far along in their own journey to living a soul-inspired life, I talk where they are. And my products, you know, I can describe in different ways. So no need to offend anyone or to describe your purpose in anything other than useful language, right? We create a narrative about what we're delivering in the world in ways that people can understand it. So your branding and marketing language is going to look very different than what you may host as, you know, the soul-inspired entrepreneur who knows this is why you're here. So I don't tell my purpose statement. Actually, I do tell it quite a lot these days because I'm inspired to, and I think it's where we need to go. And believe it or not, so during the pandemic, just a little aside, during the pandemic, I'm also an anthropologist and an evolutionary anthropologist. So I watched us evolve as humanity during the pandemic. And so many more of us are now in the late subtle tier, which is a frame of reference scientifically, that people are now living spiritual lives. And so what we used not to say, be able to say in business contexts, we can now say. I showed up on LinkedIn like 15 years ago, and like we weren't even doing personal development. And now LinkedIn is like, there's almost nothing else other than personal development on LinkedIn. Like, what the heck? So I would encourage you to think that probably you can share more than you think you can, and maybe some people, and you know, and it'll be an educational process. But yes, that was a long response.
No, it's super helpful.
Heather, can I jump in to piggyback on that?
Absolutely.
I mean Holly, not Heather, sorry. But I agree with you because the message is there, but it's more people have to continue to talk about this, because the biggest thing that we're having right now, why people don't come to work, or what that's the message that's being told, is because the world is changing and we all have to adapt as employers too. Like here in Pueblo, Colorado, majority of our businesses still rely on foot traffic, and trying to convert them to online business and e-commerce business and different ways of thinking is a really tough thing for individuals to have. You know, and so that's where what I'm getting at is with your message, and then everyone who's on this needs to talk about it as well, because the more that it's heard out there, the more people will adapt and start to say, oh yeah, maybe I do need that.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Just as a validation of what you just said, so even though I do coach, you know, C-suite executives in these large tech companies, I am amazed at what I can get away with saying. And, you know, in a very short period of time, they too, like, oh my God, I want to do something more meaningful. And I'm not going to be able to do this very much longer because we only focus on money and how important is money. And I just, you know, we're all pretending like, oh, I got to go along with the status quo in the way it's been. It's like literally the world is falling apart, it's deconstructing. I just feel like there are no limits to who we should be, who we should show up as. And, you know, we'll each do it in our own way, however we're comfortable doing, you know, thank goodness. Heather.
Yeah, thank you, Holly, and Heather as well, and Brian. I love there's a lot of excitement right now because this is a business meeting. So fucking excited. Excuse my language, but it's just time. And I love what you said, Heather, about translating, because I've done that my whole life. Always feeling like, okay, how do I put this in a way that it's not going to make me woo-woo? But what I've been finding is that what you're doing, Holly, today is an invitation. Like, you're showing up exactly where you are with your experience and everything. And if people are like, well, woo, what is she saying? We can ask questions. Right. What do you mean by this? Or, but I find that like that sense of just overwhelming desire to do things differently is growing in everybody. And, there's fear that will block that sometimes. So translation can definitely help, and knowing your audience, et cetera, your market. But I just really appreciate that you're doing this in a way that is unapologetic. It is bold, and it's time for it. And so I've been being bolder in my languaging too, and not translating as much unless people ask for it. And I've just found like that's drawing the people who are like, yes, I'm ready for this, and work with me. And that's made my work way easier, and definitely more like financially supportive to my message, that boldness.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's counterintuitive. There's two things that are counterintuitive here. And one is that the more bold you are, the more determined you are to show up as yourself, no matter what, no matter how initially uncomfortable it is, the more successful you're going to be, because you are, unabashedly, courageously saying, this is it, this is me, this is what my product is, this is who I'm supposed to serve, and this is what it looks like, and this is what you're going to get. And people are like, oh, got it, now I understand. And you're going to be able to speak to your specific audience so much more, with such greater clarity, and your branding will reflect that. I see some head nodding among our branding folk. And the second thing that may be counterintuitive, so I'm talking living this, invite in the quantum field and possibility, and it feels very abstract and nebulous. But in fact, when you are living on purpose, it is like, I know where the target is. I know who I am, and therefore I know what my arrow is and how to shoot it. I often say that if you know your precise purpose, you could put a flag on the North Pole and sniff your way there. With such deep granularity who you are and how to express that in the world, that decisions become really easy. Because you can tell energetically when you're in flow and in alignment, and when you're not. I mean, literally, I'm constantly making decisions, and when my brain turns on and starts making, it's like, no, stop. Let me stop and listen. And what's going on? Oh God, that feels so much better. Yes, I'll do it that way. And so there is a deep clarity that comes from being able to make decisions from that internal coherence. Creates external coherence. And I'm throwing in scientific terms here and lots of models, because I want to demonstrate this isn't just woo-woo, and it would be okay if it were, right? But it's not. What we now know about the validation, the verification of things we've known and felt and like kind of understood, it's becoming more and more clear. At least to scientists who are living in the new age, the new paradigm. So again, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I do want to continually emphasize that mindset mastery, which includes shadow work, limiting beliefs, the fears and the doubts, and the karma, and all the things that we brought this lifetime. We really must tackle that stuff, because you personally will not be in flow unless that is also part of the work. I'm not talking about that today, but it is about a third, sometimes more, of the work I do with clients in order to get them in flow so they can actually live into their purposeful products and business. Yeah, so that's the last time you're going to hear me talk about that. So how does a precise purpose create resilience specifically? How can having a precise purpose help you navigate these waves of change, the VUCA challenges that were here on the planet? So one way is that it promotes adaptability and clarity, not like the rigid, complex systems that we live in now. So the clarity, we talked a little bit about that, is like a compass or a GPS, and it's both for you personally, so you can be in flow and achieve that internal coherence, but it's also for your products, for your audience, for your partners, for your systems. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But this clarity is absolutely essential. So really, I'm talking about the precise, one-of-a-kind, nuanced. It's actually 1 in 400. The chance of you being here on the planet as you, with all the history and all the everything about how you got here, is 1 in 400 quadrillion. There is really, truly nobody like you. So your version of what you do is so different and so unique. I believe we have no competition. Like I have actually thrown out, kind of like the word urgent, I've thrown out the word competition, because when I show up as me, there is nobody like me. Nobody else could have this conversation with you. Not meaning it's the only conversation you need to listen to. There are also other people who do great things, but the way I do it, the way I show up, and the reason I can be bold is because I believe this is the message, this is the product I am here to deliver, and I'll do my darndest to deliver it fully in this lifetime. So that's the kind of clarity that I believe that a precise purpose brings you. And then the second thing is that it allows you to be adaptable. Purpose is not a specific product or a business or a project. It is that which lives within you that is then expressed in every area of your life, including your products. So this is why it is so easy to have multiple products in a lifetime. You know, you may have done a particular, or careers, you may have done a particular thing that was really compelling and drove you and you were enlivened and loved it. And then all of a sudden, like, I stopped being interested in that. Like, why do I not want to do that anymore? Because you have developed and evolved, and your soul has awakened and said, okay, time for the next thing, because I'm a little bit bored with that and I'm not growing anymore. So we want to move into a next version of us. That is the impulse behind the Great Resignation. People are done with the former versions of themselves. They want something that really speaks and aligns to the new versions of themselves. So we are adaptable and can do product redesign or new products or new businesses or new careers. And that is a lot of what I do in the world, is helping people figure out what is that next thing that would bring you more enlivenment and in engagement. The third thing is that a precise purpose really does generate innovation. So because we are adaptable and because our souls are always going to live into that next expression, and this speaks to the conversation about creativity, Heather, we need those imaginative and creative capacities to help us hear what is wanting to come through us. So if we're limited and live in this prescribed little box with constraints and beliefs about ourselves and not really open to possibility, that we can't possibly create that next product or that next innovation that wants to come in as we interact with the quantum field. So when we are in flow, literally our creativity is on fire. We are alive and engaged. And so this also affects not just our product, but also our messages, our messaging. You know, I am a messenger of my purpose, and therefore there is a particular message that should flow through me into the branding about my business and how I would do marketing. It also allows us to rethink the business models that we use in delivering our product into the world. There's a great book called Plan B, if you haven't read that is really innovative way of thinking about how can I re-envision a new way to deliver my product through a different kind of business model. And the fourth way that precise purpose assists us is through an agility in our responsiveness to life. So when we are who we are and we interface our purpose with the talents that we've gained in this lifetime and the capacities we've developed, and we interface that with our audience, our specific audience needs, we become very agile in our ability to say, oh, my product was sort of working, but it's missing these pieces. I now understand how my purpose needs to flow through my product. Oh, and it also needs to meet the customer's needs that have changed over time because of the VUCA challenges. So as we have a greater awareness, as the market and the customer needs evolve and the world shifts, we become very agile in our approach. So it's not like, the business failed, now what do I do? It's like, maybe we just need to rethink how I can be better expressed and meet the changing environment with a slightly different product or business model or delivery system. And then the fifth thing is that living on purpose, you see how inspired I am. This is like kind of purpose on steroids, but I live this every day. And, so I'm like kind of ridiculously over the top inspired. But when you live your purpose, you come to believe in yourself and what you're bringing to the world and your products and your business in a way that you can't help but wake up every day so excited to go do that thing again. And yeah, there's stuff in the business that's not so fun, and it's, can drain us a little bit if we're not careful. But mostly when you believe in yourself, because you are living the most expressed, enlivened version of you, there really is no harm in continuously innovating and trying new things and being agile, and a tweak in the product or a tweak in the delivery system, or finding new partners, or letting whatever the universe wants to bring you. I'm here looking for the breadcrumbs. So we become more and more inspired. And then lastly, magic. I think for me at this point in my life, the most significant reason to live on purpose is that magic shows up so regularly and so continuously that I have completely lost any doubt. All doubt is removed that what I am doing is what I'm here to do, and everything I will ever need will show up as long as I keep moving, the wheels keep rolling, I keep moving forward, taking action, all that I ever need will always be available to me. And so that, for those of you who may be familiar with quantum physics, that looks like fractal and holographic experiences. It's, what is inside of us is also what's inside of the cosmos. So if I am limited, prescribed, constrained, I'm going to experience the world as limited, prescribed, and constrained. So I have to be open and live into the possibility of being all that I am. We know about the internal, external coherence. We know about non-local effects. So you probably are familiar with the butterfly story. Years ago, maybe, I don't know how long ago it was, and I can't even remember the scientist's name, but they did this, the notion is that a butterfly on the other part of the world flapping its wings will affect your current environment, what you experience in your local community, local life, because everything is connected. There is no distinction between me and the cosmos, or me and you. We are all connected. And therefore what I do affects you, and what you do affects me. And therefore, when we think about how we can generate more enthusiasm, more inspiration, more love, more product success, more business, more abundance, really, I just need to show up and be all that I'm meant to be, and it will all show up for me too. And so these synchronicities look like magic. We have capacities to transcend our thinking mind and the scientifically proven linear rational way that we were all brought up in to live into this. Okay, I've arrived at another very woo-woo concept. I don't know if there are other questions or thoughts or comments, or I'm not assuming there are, but any thoughts about those 6 ways that purpose helps us become more successful? Jamie, you had a question?
I do, because everything you say, I am so connected with you, and I know in every part of my being. But then what comes out, because we still are transcending from old
Sorry.
paradigm to new paradigm,
Uh-huh.
I fall back, and then there's doubt and there's fear and there's, so knowing and doing are so different in my world. And
Yeah.
I get so upset with myself, which is the opposite of knowing. So do you have any tips on that?
Well, this is the mindset mastery thing that I spoke about, and it is so much of my work with clients, that identifying the limiting beliefs. This is some of the big work I do with people using mostly internal family systems practices, which was extremely, a lot of the work I do is very scientific, extremely validated tool to go in and create that internal coherence. So I go in and find the disruptions that are happening because of the limiting beliefs and the fractured subpsychic parts, and that cause this agitation internally that don't let us live as these purposeful selves. And I'm actually, we'll talk about this later, but I'm going to start doing some group programs. And that will be part of the offering, is doing IFS in group. Like, okay, this is going to be fun. We're all going to be talking to our internal parts. And so that, that is shadow work. I also do energy work. Part of the solution is to identify what it is that you're telling yourself. I know you know how to do this, Judy. What are you telling yourself that is the limiting belief that says this isn't real? So there are parts of you that are not aligned internally, even if you do know purpose and your intent is, good, and you're expressing it fully in the world. There are parts of you that say, nope, can't do that because of these things that, stuck in childhood. So there is a big chunk of the work that really is about internal alignment. I don't know that I want to spend a whole lot more on that today. Happy to do a whole nother session on that if it's useful. So I didn't look. Were there other questions or thoughts or comments?
I didn't see any.
Okay, so you've probably all heard about Ikigai, doing what you love, interface with what the world needs, with what you're good at and what you can be paid for. And this is a Japanese symbol of Ikigai. And while doing what you love is a useful expression, I think it's, in my experience, we have to get more precise than doing what you love, because I can love, swinging on a swing. I love swinging on children's swings, but that's not going to, get me business. And so what I love, I call it what you can't not do, that which has always been alive in you. Sometimes it may have even caused you pain. I talked about my purpose expression statement, and the first part is speaking powerful truth. So as a child, I came out of the womb speaking powerful truths, but they weren't always welcome, and I didn't do it well, and sometimes it was a little too courageous for the context. It created more conflict and destruction than was necessary. So it was what I can't not do, but I had to learn to refine the way that I speak powerful truths in order to be useful in the world. So we look for the things that you can't not do. And then when we do that internal work, the mindset stuff, we look at how to share that gift with the world in a more powerful way. And so we are looking, generally, we're looking for the center of the interface of your purpose, what you're good at, what capacities have you developed, and or what can you develop, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And I'm sure all of you have created some level of awareness about that. So once you have clarity on purpose, how do you pivot? What does it look like when you're like, okay, I think I have a sense of what is that would be more expressive of my purpose, but what does that look like in business, and how do I make that shift? And one of the people that I've studied with, Ash Mara, has a business called Lean Stack, and probably all of you have done and are familiar with how to do market research. And I've been doing that for decades, but I learned this new approach from Ash actually just last year. And this is an interesting model that he shares that talks about the varying customer forces that are a part of how we figure out where do we focus our product, and which also speaks to the messages and the branding. So I'm going to take you to this. I think are you going to share slides, Jamie, with everybody? I mean, this will be a part of the slides, so you don't need to take notes. But so he talks, and this is Ash's work, Ash Tomorrow's work. And he's got Running Lean and Scaling Lean are his two books. The course I took was called Lean Stack. This is what he calls the customer forces story. So when a customer encounters a triggering event, and that might be my car broke down and, oh my gosh, how am I going to get around? I need some way of getting myself from A to B. And I had an expectation violation, like I no longer have transportation to carry out my life. So I start considering new solutions. Well, I could ride my bicycle. I could take, public transportation if it's available, which it isn't often. I could buy a moped or an e-bike. I could look for a used car. I could buy a new car. I could lease a new car. I could ask my friends. I could ask my partner to take me places. All of those things are in the consideration set that I will imagine as possibilities. And this is just an example of what your customers each go through. And I pick a new solution based on its unique value proposition. Wow, I actually need a car because I'm in Colorado and it's winter and it snows, and probably a moped's not going to get me where I need when there's 3 feet of snow on the ground. And I got to be reliable for my customers. So I'm going to look for a slightly older car that doesn't have too many miles, and I have this budget, and la la la. Well, what keeps me from switching to a moped to the new car? What pulls me to switching, and I'll go back to the graph in a minute, what pulls me to consider looking for did it again, sorry. What pulls me to a slightly used car? What anxieties do I have about buying that used car, thinking it might be a lemon, it's going to have things I don't know about? And then what is available to me at the next summit? So this would be, as an entrepreneur, once you get to that next, the used car, then how do you upsell? I hate using these phrases, but they're business phrases. How do you upsell them? How do you keep them in? How do you create a customer journey that keeps them in your bailiwick and your business, so you can sell them the next thing that you have to offer, share the next gift you have to offer? So when we think about these forces, which will you address? So let's look at them again. So in your business, and I can walk back to the customer story if you want me to, let's think about, in your business, what's the triggering event that would cause someone to consider needing your service? And we're just going to spend a few minutes here. So what is it that would cause someone to say, I need your service? Somebody needs my service. My clients show up. I know that something else is wanting to be birthed. I don't know what that is. I'm confused. I'm lost. I can't find it. I've looked. I've taken 12 courses and hired 3 coaches, and nobody's getting me to purpose clarity. Like, that's the triggering event. And I'm frustrated and I'm angry because I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing. So what's your triggering event? And then what pulls your clients or customers to you? In my case, people are pulled by the notion that they could have clarity, they could have a deep understanding of who they are and offer that in the world. And that excites them, inspires them. That used car can get them down the road to the next job. So what is it that pushes them? In my case, people are pushed by their frustration, their disillusionment, their annoyance at the world and the life and the business or the career they've been in. They're exhausted, they're burned out. I may be pushed to buy that used car because I have nothing and a moped's not going to work. My bicycle gets flat tires. And then let's talk about inertia. You know, inertia is, go back to this one, what keeps them from switching. So what would keep your customers from switching from their current experience? You know, this model assumes that we all have something that sort of works for us. You know, even if it's the car example I mentioned, you know, I have 2 feet. I have 2 feet, they don't cost anything. I just put shoes on them. Or I have a bicycle, I can do that. So the inertia in that example would like, wow, do I really want to spend money on buying even a used car? And for my clients, it's like generally, well, I'm making decent money. I know how to do this. I can get up every day and just keep going. I just keep going. Like, you know, it's inertia is like the fundamentally most detrimental force there is for us as humans, because it's just so much easier to live in the status quo than it is to do something different. And then what's the friction? What would make it harder? What makes it hard for your clients? What anxieties do they have? What stories do they hear from people that create fear in them? Oh, you know, my friend bought a used car and oh my God, they had to spend $4,000 after they bought it. It was horrific. They had to order new parts. It took 2 months. You know, all the things that we hear about, the horror stories. So what's the friction for you in your business among your customers? I think we have time for, actually, we're starting to run out of time. One or two really quick stories in a sentence or two, or maybe a minute or two. Anybody want to share what they've come up with?
I have an online website e-commerce business where I sell my own pattern designs that would look like something behind Jamie's head.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing online, I've given the customers the opportunity to purchase first-class mail up through priority mail. And I hate to say it, but the ones that give me grief, I call idiots, because they purchase first-class mail and don't have a tracking number. So I finally just this week went to something where I have bumped up the weight of my products. How it gets shipped is based on weight through my system. I fictitiously bumped up the weight of the products so that they end up into at least a first-class package, which gives them a tracking number. And I'm hoping this will relieve the problem of the stupidity of not buying shipping that's just a little more pricey, but at least they know where their package is.
So Jackie, if I understand, the triggering event was people aren't receiving your product in the mail. Is that?
Yeah, not many, but it's getting more prevalent since the beginning of the year. And I think it's because the post office is understaffed. And
so I want to be honest, this feels like a delivery system issue rather than customer forces. So they probably, so when we talk about customer forces, we're looking at why would someone want to buy your product and what would keep them from, you know, from buying from you. And so this sounds like an actual delivery system issue. So it's probably your triggering event rather than theirs. Does that make sense to you? Or
but they have options as to which package price point to buy at. And because they pick cheap, they get no tracking number.
Yeah. I mean, I think your solution is perfect. Just eliminate the cheapest version of mailing. But it sounds like they were buying from you anyway. It's really more of a delivery system issue
Yeah,
than necessarily a customer force. Does that make sense to you?
it
Because
does now.
they're still
Yeah.
buying, and don't seem to have any of the inertia or friction that it really exists on your side. And probably it sounds like you've made a great decision to.
Okay, so, but I can see where you're saying that's not
Mhm.
quite what you're talking here. I'm not in
Right.
the
Well,
right.
and so really what I was suggesting here, and thank you for helping me clarify that, what we're looking at is how might you refine your own purpose-driven product to better meet customer needs where they are, by looking at some of these customer forces that are always inherent in a potential customer making a decision to work with you or not. So as you reimagine a pivot, once you get clear about who you are and what you think you want to offer to the world, how does that fit with the actual customer needs? And so these forces probably should be reevaluated at this time in our world, probably every 6 to 12 months. Because the markets, the world is changing, and thus the markets are changing and perspectives changing. And, we have now more, and well, in some ways we have more inertia than ever, and also less, because we have more impulse. So the pull, what used to be, I don't want to change because I'm comfortable, which was a force of inertia, is now a pull, like the world is changing and I want something different. So you can see that force actually became a positive contributor to people making choices where it used to be a deterrent. So these forces for our customer markets constantly shift. And so what I'm trying to demonstrate is that even if I do know, hey, I want to bring my product in the world that better expresses, do some product redesign and maneuvering that better expresses who I am and how I am, that we have to, back to the Ikigai model, we have to actually understand, let me get the right slide. Well, there we go. We have to understand that, what you can't not do is just one aspect of creating a successful business. And this is where I can't remember who it was that was talking about all the new entrepreneurs in the world. Unfortunately, these people generally like, oh, I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm going to express my purpose, I'm going to bring this into the world and it's going to be successful because, the magic and the everything. And The Secret told me that I could. Right? And they don't know that that's just one aspect, and you actually really have to know what you're good at, and you have to know what the world needs, and is anybody willing to pay for that? So there are also all these forces, and what I'm really trying to demonstrate here through this model is as a means of, now that you know what you can't not do, if you have precise purpose clarity, pivoting would be, what does the world actually want? And what are the factors that I can address? So my product probably fits perfectly in one of these forces. I'm either a pull, or I'm a push, or I'm a way to address the inertia, or I'm a way to address the friction, right? So in my actual product, I need to be describing what I do from these perspectives. You had this event and now you want this. And these factors are happening, and I know you're dealing with this, and you're also like, this is also impinging against you. But when you do this, this is the desired outcome. So your product needs to address at least probably a couple of these factors and also speak to the desired outcome. So it's a way to begin to think about the messages that are expressed through your purpose relative to customer needs that shift continuously. Anybody else have an example they'd like to share? Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate your willingness. And if not, that's okay. This might be the first time you've seen anything like this, and I get, like, it took me a while to figure it out too. And
I
I'm
think
sorry?
Celeste wanted to say something.
Oh, okay.
I think that one of the things that I would want to clarify as you're asking the question is the last question that you asked is are you asking it kind of just like through the lens of the customers that we're serving? Is that have I asked a clear question?
You haven't had, so what I'm suggesting is that when you have more clarity, so this was the whole question from earlier, when you have clarity of purpose. So this is about pivots, learning to make pivots. The first step is actually getting clarity about your purpose and how that wants to be expressed through you. And then once you have that clarity, how do you pivot to a new product, a new expression of you in your business? And one of the ways is to look at how is it what I do meeting the needs of the shifting customer market, the forces that my potential customer experiences. And so you can start with your existing customers and do some interviews with them and find out what was your story, how did you arrive here in my business, and choose me to get some sense. In fact, I always suggest anybody starting and either refining or even evaluating their current products or creating a new product, you really do need to do market research and go ask the people where they are. Like, what are these things going on in your life that brought you here? Or what else are you choosing? What are you choosing as an alternative and why? And how might I better, how might you walk away thinking, now, how might I better address that? So it helps you refine your product so that it's kind of like the second step once you have deep clarity. And did that answer the question, Celeste? Or
I
yeah.
believe so. Thank you for
Okay.
taking us through the model that you're teaching today. But what was the question that you asked? I think that was what wasn't clear. Last question, as you invited commentary or sharing.
Yeah, I was asking if you had an example of how that would show up in your business. And I'll be honest, I think we're starting to get close to the end of the session. Jamie, I don't know if you are willing to go 5 minutes over or we need to move on.
I'm willing to go over. I don't know about everybody else.
Yeah. You know what, let's keep going. I've got about 5 more minutes or so, and then we can come back to that question if that's all right. So this is another way of evaluating your potential product. Probably this is intuitive to all of you as entrepreneurs, but do my customers want this? So that would be the desirable circle. We're looking for the interface of these things, and you assessed that through some of the last, looking at the customer forces. Can I monetize this? Can I actually sell it? Will people pay the amount of money that I need to build it? And is it feasible for me to build? Can I actually build or create this thing? Is it an innovation that's likely to be fulfilled easily? And that's what Marissa Murgatroyd, who I've also studied with, calls the innovation trinity. So it doesn't behoove us as innovators, as product builders, as business owners to create things that our customers don't want, that we can't monetize, or that we can't successfully and efficiently build. So those are 3 things to also think about as you're moving into product redesign or new products. And so lastly, that leads us to, what are the solutions for a pivot? And first step is being purpose-led. So what lives in you and emerges through you and wants to be expressed in the world as your internal and external coherence. And then evaluating what are the customer segments. So you may, in this exercise of doing some market research, you may see that there's more than one product I could actually sell. That is an expression of me that meets 2 different markets. It addresses an inertia and it also is a pull for my customers. So you might actually be able to distinguish and pull apart your product in a way that's more viable and more sustainable for your business, you know, when you have a little more clarity about what those customer segments are. And by segments, what I mean is that, you know, people in each, there may be segments of customers in each of these arenas: pull, push, inertia, and friction. So that might be 4 different customer segments. It actually is for me, or at least I speak about it in marketing branding terms uniquely. And then you think about, what are the problems worth solving? You know, what is it that I feel worthy, is useful and worthy and would be useful in the world? So I'm not going to bring something into the world that I don't think is going to help solve the VUCA problem. For me, that's important. What is worth solving for you? And then look at the innovation trinity. So as you're thinking about refining your products and making a pivot, these are the kinds of questions I would really begin asking in order to have a successful pivot into a sustainable business. And then what are the keys to effective pivots? I'm going to run through this briefly. You may have heard of virtuous cycles. Jim Collins of Good to Great initially came out with it, and then I began to study business models with this other guy. And Amazon was one of the first models of virtuous cycle. And really what that means is setting up a business model that continually creates the opportunity for growth and expansion, because I'm continually learning about things. And these virtuous cycles then create more successful businesses. Mindset would be the second thing we've talked about: learning to envision possibility for products that you never imagined before, which is, you know, really based in creativity and imagination and visualization, experimentation, taking small, bold steps. You know, think about where you could have a greater capacity for imagination in your own business. And then lastly, making sure that you're taking action and stepping into the unknown, because our businesses are not going to scale and grow in the same way in our current world, because the world is shifting and changing so rapidly with such volatility that we need to be adaptable and resilient to take steps, not knowing what's going to happen. So this belief that we can take steps and continually learn and grow in the moment, being present to what is happening. And so this requires us to take smaller steps and bolder steps, and imagine that I'm collecting, I'm listening to data, I'm constantly talking to my customers, I'm constantly observing what's happening in the market, and how can my product then better meet the needs of the customers where they're at. And one of the things I did this past year is create a model for all of these concepts called the purpose flywheel, you know, based in Jim Collins' work about the flywheel, in that the first level of discovery is about what is our precise purpose, which gives us confidence and courage to go out in the real world as our true selves. And then secondly is to master our mindset, so we can actually create purpose-driven products based in possibility and pivot those products in order to create profit, and then bringing in all of the things we do know about how to gain traction in business, so I can have more impact, influence in the markets that I care to work in, and have an inspired vision that keeps me moving forward year after year. So the key takeaways quickly are that precise purpose creates resilience. Purpose defines product pivots. We know that pivots from somewhere else are not necessarily going to be sustainable and keep us inspired, and that we do have to plan experiments that create viable actions, these small, bold steps. Just, you know, happy to stick around some extra time to talk about some of these things in greater detail. And you can reach me at holly@emergence.net. Happy to talk to any of you if you want to set up an appointment with me. Really glad to explore what's going on in your business, and, you know, think about some ideas if you're stuck in some way, or help you think about customer forces. I do coaching and mentoring. I help with product design development. I help people, you know, get that mindset that's needed to move forward. I help people develop systems, and I'm going to be building this year a new community of purpose-led innovators to build businesses that are rooted in purpose and responsive and navigating the unknown, the uncertainty. So that will be happening. If any of you want to get on my email list and hear more about products, etc., you can either send me an email or just go to my website and sign up for something. And that is the last of the presentation. Jamie, I don't know if you want to round us out here.
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Holly. And every time I hear more from you, I am more inspired and then go, I thought I knew something, but I know nothing. So it's true. So I think I might be reaching out to you myself, and thank you.
You're welcome.
And I also wanted to share with the group that all of our centers' websites, in any of the 15 centers, if you want to reach out to us, we do offer free confidential consulting, and we have access to our local regional consultants as well as statewide consultants that are experts. You just go to our website, what we do, click on consulting and register. Also, our centers have our own unique workshops, such as the one today. And then you can also access statewide workshops. And then in our Central Mountain region, or even throughout the state, Startup Colorado has a platform that's somewhat like LinkedIn and Facebook, where you can connect with like-minded entrepreneurs. I know Holly's on that, and Heather and Wendy. You can join our Central Mountain Entrepreneurs group on that platform as well. And then next slide. And we have in our center a series of training curriculum. You can see them on the top across. And then we invite you to join us for the Power of We, which is women entrepreneurs. Holly is actually the keynote speaker at that conference, and it's May 16th. Both Heathers are at the conference, and so is Wendy. So it's kind of an exciting event. And then in the fall, we have the Outdoor Industry Summit. And last slide.
That's it. Oh, there's one more. Right, sorry.
I actually remember this.
You're
So just to reiterate, we offer in all our centers free confidential consulting, access to capital and coaching on that. We use the Lean Canvas as well as business model canvases and cash flow and all of that. We can connect you with lenders. We have annual workshops and low-cost training. So please reach out to any of our centers. And with that, if anybody has questions before we conclude, we welcome that.
Holly,
just wanted to-
can you-
Oh, go ahead.
Holly, can you include the link, the bit.ly link for us to set up a call with you in the chat with us? Because I couldn't copy it from the slide.
Sure.
And-
Go ahead.
And thank you. This was wonderful. And I'm so happy to be crossing paths with you and excited to continue crossing paths with you. So thank you so much for this.
You're welcome. Sorry, I thought I stopped sharing, I didn't. So happy to. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to have been here today. And again, really, truly happy to talk to anybody. Just this is why I'm here. So the more I can support and be of service, I'm delighted. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being passionate about what you're doing, and it's been really inspiring to me. I know I'll be reaching out to you and touching base
Beautiful.
about some things. So
Great.
yeah, so thank you. I appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
Thank you all for taking the time. I know you're very, very busy and have many other priorities, and I just really appreciate your willingness to be a part of this conversation. It was very special to me.
Well, thank you, Holly. And we're looking forward to seeing you in April and May. And you also are going to continue to do some offerings in the fall. And I can't wait to see you in person and have
Me
further
too.
discussions.
Me too. All right. Thank you, everybody. Great to meet most of you for the first time.
Yeah.
Blessings. Have a great day.
Blessings.
Thank you so much.
Bye.